Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome way for you to rub elbows with your favorite podcast hosts here on the Sports History Network, while at the same time rooting for your hometown team this upcoming NFL season. You've been hearing all about our partner, Tailgate Fantasy, the past few weeks. Well, dig on this. Tailgate created a special Sports History Network league for our listeners, so we can put the word fan back into fantasy football together. It's free to join, and if you do so before the season kicks off, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for a free t-shirt from one of our other partners, Home Field Apparel. It's a win-win-win! So hurry up today and head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate for all the details. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate.
We're sure glad you joined us in this episode because we have footballarchaeology.com's Timothy P. Brown coming to talk about some great chivalrous moments of some great sportsmen in the game, as well as some guys that weren't so good at sports. We have more from Tim coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another Tuesday. Footballarchaeology.com's Timothy P. Brown is joining us once again. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hey, Darren. Thanks for having me once again. Looking forward to chatting about old football stuff.
Yeah, and we're going to ask you to keep it clean tonight, but I don't think we can possibly do that with the subject matter tonight because you recently wrote a tidbit and you titled it Dirty Play and a Ring of Truth. Maybe you could explain to us what that all means.
Yeah, so, it seems like I've had a number of tidbits recently where it's like it starts in one direction, then takes a turn sometimes for the worse, right? And so this is one where I started off by just telling a story of some examples of in the old days of players and teams acting in a chivalrous manner. So, I told a story about in 1953, Clemson quarterback, a guy named Don King, told his team not to hit the Wake Forest quarterback in the knees because he'd sustained an injury. And so they complied, and then he ends up winning a sportsmanship award. A similar thing happened back in 1925. Davis and Elkins goes to Army. They're playing Army, who's already got one of their quarterbacks hurt. First string quarterback gets dazed, probably concussed in the game. He leaves the game. Second guy comes in. He sustains some kind of bodily injury, and he's out. So they have to bring this guy back in who was dazed and confused, right? So the West Point trainer just approached the Davis and Elkins captain and said, "Hey, can you kind of take it easy on this guy?" So Davis and Elkins complied, and they basically took it easy on this quarterback the rest of the game because Army needed the guy to be there, but he shouldn't have been there. And just to make sure that we don't think that chivalrous things don't still happen in the games today. The other night, I just happened to see a little clip from a high school game, and wide receivers going downfield, gets injured, and then his bad leg, and one of his teammates kind of gets under his arm, helps him hop along. A D-back from the opposing team jumps under the other arm and helps him off the field. So it's just a good kid trying to help his opponent. So that's all good. Now, there's other times in football where people haven't acted that way, and so back in 1926, Princeton and Harvard had a game, and there's just a lot of kind of stuff leading up to it. Princeton had won the last 2 years, so Harvard wasn't pleased with that because they thought they were better than Princeton. And Princeton was mad because it used to be, especially before the turn of the century, that Princeton and Yale finished the season with the game with one another. But then it turned into a Harvard-Yale game that we all know ends the season in the Ivy League. But Princeton wanted it to rotate, among the three teams. And Harvard was like, nah, we're not going to do that. So, Princeton was feeling like underappreciated and all that kind of stuff. So, there's this kind of antagonistic relationship. And then, so they're getting ready to play. They're playing in Cambridge. And the morning of the game, the Harvard Lampoon, the, student newspaper or magazine, publishes a story about the Princeton coach dying. Now, he hadn't really died, but they still published a story about him dying, which the Princeton people didn't particularly appreciate. So just lots of, kind of ill will going in the game. And so I think the Princeton players did their best to take it out on the Harvard players. And like 6 of the Harvard players had to leave the game, with injuries. And then Princeton wins 12-0. And so, it's just kind of this general ill feelings. But then, like in end of December, early January, a former Harvard player publishes a story in a some kind of social magazine or whatever it was. But he publishes a story basically saying the Princeton players, played dirty, they did this and that. And one piece that he used as evidence was that one of the Harvard backs had got like a bloody nose and black eye, and that area of his face or nose had a P imprinted on it. And it was because, those signet rings where it's like it's a ring that has like a letter on the ring. They were claiming that a Princeton player wearing the letter P ring had punched this guy in the face and left this imprint in his face. So, apparently, no one else backed this guy up. None of the other Harvard people verified it. And, but all the Princeton people were up in arms about it. And they were basically saying, hey, nobody around Princeton wears a P signet ring. But there was this one guy, their star player at the time, this guy named Prendergast. And he was like, hey, my last name begins with P. So guess where that came from? And I don't think that was true, but, he was going to keep things stirred up. So Prendergast was the P rather than Princeton. If anybody actually did slug this guy in the face with the P ring, it was Prendergast. So anyways, that's kind of the gist of the story. But Harvard and Princeton did not play football against one another for another 8 years. So they definitely were not. They weren't on nice, pleasant speaking terms at the time.
That darn Prendergast, he ruined football for that game for a couple of years. That's wow. That is an amazing part of football there. Go ahead.
And the funny thing too is that I recently had another tidbit talking about the executioner's helmets. Where they have the mask, so just a normal leather helmet, but then they'd have this mask across the front. And so one of the images in that story is Prendergast of Princeton in the 1924 season, because he had broken a nose and needed surgery in high school. And so then, there were times where his nose would get, busted up again in college. And so he'd wear that executioner's mask. So he knew all about broken noses and that sort of thing.
Wow, that is a great story. I thought at first you were going to tell us that Mrs. Brown put a bee on your head when you didn't take out the garbage or something. But
no,
in my family it would be the back of the frying pan or something. But,
yeah, my wife's shorter than me, so her arms aren't that long, and so and plus I'm float like a butterfly. So I could avoid her.
Well, I think I just saw something flying across the room. No, I'm just kidding. But so wow, that is a great story. There's really some opportunity for folks in the playing football, when especially down in the piles. Everybody that's played, we all know there's bad things that happen down there if somebody really wants to do something. And it's really hard for an official to see something that's happening down there. You have guys popping up all the time saying, "Hey, he punched me in a place he shouldn't punch, and pinched me, bite me, or whatever." You have all kinds of crazy things. So it's nice to hear the chivalrous episodes like you talked about, even in modern times, or players just, it's a brotherhood, and these guys are all trying to enjoy playing the same game, and there should be some camaraderie to it, and it's great when that happens. But every once in a while you get these bad apples and these scoundrels that decide to take things in a different course, and they're interesting stories, but not fun if you're the recipient, that's for sure.
Yeah, and part of it too is I think we have the impression of the Ivy Leaguers being, these nice fellows, and that definitely has not always been the case. So.
And they have some beautiful signature rings too.
Yes.
So, all right, Tim. Well, that is some great things. That's not something you hear anywhere else, but from you, some of these great little innovative stories that you've come across that are very unique to the game of football, but tell a certain history of the game, and really round out our appreciation for what players have done, and maybe not appreciate something that others have done, but it's all part of the game of football. And you talk about it each and every day, and you have a great little newsletter you pop out to folks every day by many different sources. And maybe you could tell us about that and how people can join in.
Yeah. All you have to do is go to footballarchaeology.com. And, if you're pretty much all over the place, you read an article, you have an opportunity to subscribe. And if you subscribe, you get an email in your inbox every night at 7:00 or Eastern or so, and then read it at your leisure, delete it, whatever you want to do, and then if you don't want the newsletter, then you can follow me on Twitter, on Threads, or on the Substack app, and those are also just search for Football Archaeology, and you'll find me. That's my name on each of those three apps. Okay.
And his name is Timothy P. Brown, not the name on the Substack apps, but he is footballarchaeology.com. And Tim, we thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you again next Tuesday.
I always appreciate the opportunity to talk football. Thanks, Darren.
Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.